Show you how to turn a cube into a simple sphere. Now you might be thinking, wait a second, I saw a sphere in the meshes on the ad screen. Why are you showing me how to make a sphere? Well, sometimes the spheres that auto-propagate out of Blender will give strange angles in their shapes when you actually go to 3D print them. So what you want to do instead, if you need to make a sphere, is you actually want to use a subdivision surface modifier. So if you put a cube into your workspace, you can go down into this bottom right hand panel and you'll see that there's a wrench on the side, or if you're in the UK, a spanner. What this is a modifiers panel, and we can pick a modifier called subdivision surface. What subdivision surface is going to do is it's going to take all of the surfaces on our cube and break them down into smaller bits. It's basically going to split the faces and is going to smooth the object out. So right now we literally have a block. It's as blocky as possible. And if we add a subdivision surface modifier, it's going to start to smooth it out. Now this object is still pretty blocky, but we can increase the number of subdivisions and make the object smoother by increasing our viewport. And that's basically increasing the number of faces that we're adding onto this. Now, it's a very subtle difference between this and between a sphere that we could add as a mesh. Oh, I don't want a circle, I want a sphere. But you actually can see there's a difference. On the top of this sphere, you see everything is coming up into a point. And actually, you'll see it really well if you switch over to wireframe. Everything comes to a point at the top and at the bottom of the sphere, which is where we start to get some of those wonky surfaces because you have all of those really tight angles that are difficult to render together. But when you do a subdivided surface cube into the sphere instead, you can see everything is smooth and uniform. Now, if you're looking closely, you'll see this sphere isn't perfectly spherical because we did start off with a block shape. That is okay. There are a couple of different workarounds, but most of the time if we're 3D printing something on a fairly small scale, people aren't going to be able to notice that this cube or that the sphere is a little bit cubed more than you would expect it to be. Now there are some other things to keep in mind with this subdivision surface modifier. The more that you crank up those viewports, the more it's going to take time to render, but there still are going to be flat surfaces there. Most of the time, I find working with a 3 or a 4 is okay. It depends on the scale. It also depends how much modeling you're going to do afterwards, which one you're going to pick. The other thing you should keep in mind is that this effect has not actually taken place yet. We can delete it by pressing the X here, and we'll go back to the cube. But you can also see if you switch into edit mode that the cube still exists. So what you will see sometimes in tutorials people are doing is that they will actually manipulate the original cube and Blender will predict what's going to happen to the shape that they have on the inside. So this allows them to manipulate the overall shape that they're using while having fewer points of data to work with. This only is going to take place, or this is going to give a preview until we actually apply the modifier. So in order to apply a modifier, you have to be in object mode, click apply, and then this becomes the actual shape. And now you can see we have a lot more vertices that we can play with here. So we can manipulate those, we can extrude them, we can move them, we can do lots of different things now with all of these vertices, including some that Blender doesn't quite like.